So holy crap, Helldivers, we just got an absolute beast of an update dropped to us. So the update 4.01 is now live and it is super meaty and there's a lot to cover, so let's dive right in. Well, everyone, it is official. We are in the we're so back phase again. Yes, I know the graphic over here that you see that has been notating it from the beginning of the game's launch goes through a phase of we're so back, we're so over it, we're so back, we're done, we're cooked. We're finally back in the so back phase, and honestly, it feels great. I think that we can be within this phase for a good length of time this time around, hopefully. Fingers crossed. But with what we're getting in this patch, I really think that it goes a far way to help. Obviously, the game has not been in the greatest state since, recent times and performance issues and, a plethora of other things that made the kind of audience and everyone else a little bit sour on the game right now. But yeah, I'm pretty happy with what we're seeing over here. And friends, it's looking pretty positive. So let's cover the first bit of updates now. So patch 4.1 has over 200 bugs fixed, and that's a lot in here. So not only that, but it also brings more balance to the game on the side of the players this time. Yes, we're finally going to get away from grunt fantasy a little bit and get a little bit back towards us, and that's great to see. There's been some huge adjustments to balance, and all in a positive way, friends. As I was saying before, getting a bit away from grunt fantasy and getting more towards, not quite power fantasy, but we don't necessarily want to go there, but making everything feel a bit better for us as players. So starting at the top with the general changes, though, primaries, sidearms, throwables, and stratagems will have improvements that makes them overall more effective. And this is going to play out really huge, and you'll see in the later descriptions, but it's making everything across the board way more effective, everybody. So, starting off first now with the light versus the medium penetration weapons, a lot of people for some time have felt like, hey, it's not even worthwhile to bring light armor penetrating weapons because they're not doing enough damage to the enemy, or I feel like they're not doing enough damage. But now, everyone, the light and medium pen will offer more distinct advantages. So, how it's described here is that the light penetration weapons will generally deal a higher percentage of their total damage against durable enemies, differentiating them more clearly from their medium pen options. What that really means is that we'll be able to do more build-up damage over time on durable areas to help you, actually start to get a bit of armor penetrating, or once you've cracked through the durability, really helping you to do a lot more of your damage with your gun over time. And because you have a lot more bullets than these types of weapons, they will be effective. As for our one-handed options, so SMGs and pistols are going to feel a lot better. So they've really emphasized doing more damage at close range, but also damage fall-off has been increased as well, so that you're not just trying to shoot these things across the map. But I think this is a good improvement overall. We're able to be a bit more effective and feel like our guns have more stopping power at close range when we're using these because again it is a sidearm, it's not a primary. But of course there's different ones out there that have different AP levels and things like that. But again, I think this is a positive change. And then also, holy crap, we are making melee and throwables more viable again, and that's something that I'm probably the most excited for that I've been seeing in this patch. I'm someone that does a lot of different build guides, and being able to, have melee in the mix adds to the variety and a lot more fun, so I'm super glad for this change, as you can see. The next is a small but really needed change, and that is no more climbing the damn resupply pack when you are trying to just get some ammo out of it. So thank you, Arrowhead, for that one. So on to all the buffs for the primary weapons. So starting off with the Punisher Plasma, the damage projectile decreased from 100 to 0, but the damage explosion increased from 150 to 225. The Slugger, the damage increased from 280 to 330, so that's a big increase. And then the durable damage is also increased from 75 to 90. Now, friends, if you're asking what durable damage means, that is damage to an armored part until you are able to crack through it. Then the AR-23 Liberator has had its damage increased from 80 to 90, and then its durability increased from 15 to 22. The 23 Liberator Carbine damage increased from 80 to 90 as well, and then durability increased from 15 to 22 as well. The Liberator Pen from 60 to 65 for damage. The Liberator Concussive damage increased from 65 to 75. And then the durable damage from 30 to 35. And then for the Tenderizer over here, durable damage is increased overall from 22 to 30. So those are all really great. Then continuing on, the Pacifier has increased its damage from 50 to 55, but also stun value per projectile has also increased from 1.5 to 2, so, able to stun a lot more people with this gun again. The Defender has had its damage increase from 80 to 100, and its durable damage increased from 8 to 18, and then the Drag has also increased. Then for our Knight, the damage has increased from 70 to 90, durable damage from 7 to 18, so that's a huge increase, but then also its Drag has also increased. Now, the Reprimand, and this is a gun that I have come to love, has had another buff to its damage, so increased from 125 to 135, but then also a drag increase as well. The Pummeler has had damage increase from 70 to 85, and durable damage from 7 to 18. Stun value has been increased from 1.5 to 2, and then drag has been increased as well. The Las Sickle, the damage has increased from 55 to 60, and from a durable damage value from 5 to 6, so a moderate increase. And then the good old MA5C from the Halo pack has had a damage increase from 80 to 90, making it a bit more effective. The MS7 SMG has had the increase from 70 to 80, and more durable damage has increased from 7 to 16. And then the STA11 SMG has increased from 70 to 90, durable damage from 7 to 18. Of course, drag increase as well. Then the different overall Plaz 39 accelerator buffs are looking pretty good. So spare magazines increased from 8 to 12, and the ergonomics from 40 to 60. And then for the Scorcher over here, the Plaz Scorcher projectiles will now pass through foliage without hitting or losing velocity. So real quick, friends, I know that they were like, oh, we can't really tool up and change the different collaborator guns that we have added to the game. And yeah, no, they totally can, friends. I just thought that they just didn't really want to for a while. And from these buffs that you can see, they've worked on some of the guns that were underperforming from the collaborations. And then on to sidearms, and because in this game melees are considered sidearms, we're going to start off with those and then work our way through. And as I mentioned before, all awesome and positive changes. So starting off with the Saber's damage has been increased from 110 to 125, and then durable damage has been increased from 55 to 65, making it overall more effective against his armored enemies. The combat hatchet, which I love to use, has been increased from 110 to 160, so that's a huge buff. And then the durable damage has been increased from 55 to 80, so, we're going to be hacking through more armor, cutting off more limbs, all that good stuff. But the attack speed has been slightly reduced, but that's just going to add to the overall weightiness and the feel of the hatchet, so I'm okay with that. And then for our machete mains, and I love this one as well, a big buff to the damage, so increase from 170 to 200, and then durable damage is increased from 80 to 100, and I know I do a lot of builds with the machete, so very excited for that. Then for our sidearm pistols, starting off with the Peacemaker, our damage has been increased from 85 to 95, with durable damage from 25 to 30, but the drag has also been increased. The Redeemer from 60 to 70 for its damage, and the durable damage increased from 5 to 12, so that's a big buff. But again, drag increased. The Verdict damage increased from 125 to 135, and drag has been increased, so not a huge change over there. The SOCOM damage increased from 100 to 110, and then drag increased from 0.6 to 1.2. And then for the Warrant, drag has been decreased from 0.3 to 0, so that's an interesting change. And gravity multiplier has decreased from 1 to 0.3, so that's going to make the handling overall feel better. And then as for our throwables, so starting off with our dynamite, the damage has increased from 700 to a whopping 1,000, and the armor pen has increased from medium to heavy, so that's packing a much heavier punch. Demolition strength has increased from 30 to 40 as well, and stagger has increased from 30 to 40, and use has decreased though from 4 to 3, but still, this is making it way more viable. The pineapple, the shrapnel has been increased from the main explosion from 7 to 18, the demolition strength from the main explosion from 20 to 30. The inner radius of the shrapnel has also increased a little bit. The damage on the shrapnel explosion has increased from 70 to 100. It removed the lifetime on the shrapnel, and then the shrapnel from the explosion decreased from 6 to 0. As for the 50 Seeker over here, higher priority to flying enemies, so that's going to be way better, and not seeking those smaller fry too much. Highest travel priority for marked targets as well, and then damage increase from 400 all the way to 500. For the frag, a slight increase over here from 5 to 6 for overall frags we could have. And then for the smoke, increases have also gone from 4 to 5. And then for throwing knives, the ever neglected throwable. So damage has increased from 250 to 300. And then durable damage has increased from 100 to 150. Okay, now on to stratagems, because there's been some positive changes here as well. Starting off with the epoch, the duration until explosion increased from 3 to 3.25, making it a bit safer to use. Delayed muzzle charge FX by 0.5, so it now appears when projectile is overcharged, improving visibility, so we don't kill ourselves as much. Damage on standard projectiles has also increased from 400 to an increase of 500, and then demolition strength on overcharged projectiles increased from 10 to 30. Then for our stalwart lovers, the stalwart has had a damage increase from 80 to 90, and the durable damage has increased from 15 to 22. For the Flam 40, the canister capacity has increased from 130 to 150 so it could hold more, and starting canisters have increased from 2 to 3 as well. And then max spare canisters have increased from 4 to 5, because that gun always used to run out too quickly. The anti-material rifle, now this has been a hotly contested one since its last debuff. So its durable damage has increased from 180 to 225, making it way more viable now. And then starting magazines have increased from 4 to 5, and max spare magazines have increased from 6 to 8. So it gives us a reason to use this gun again. For our AC mains out there, a staple of many Helldivers, the damage has increased from 260 to 325. And then for my beloved de-escalator, it's being rebuffed after the debuff, so damage has been increased from 55 to a whopping 100, and durable damage has increased from 55 to 70. And then this is amazing. The solo silo has had its health increase from 800 to 1500, making it way more durable. But then also, it is not going to be directly targeted by enemies. That has been such a frustration since its launch, so I'm very happy that they fixed that. And then we've increased the overall demolition strength needed to destroy it, which is, again, super wonderful. For the orbital rail cannon strike, the cooldown is decreased from 210 to 180, making it more usable on the battlefield. And then for our mech lovers out there, the Patriot exosuit has had its missile armor penetration in worse angles increased from 6640 to 6650. And then the rotary gun ammo capacity has increased from 1,000 to 1,350. So again, really nice buffs to these stratagems overall. So now on to different enemy types, because they wanted to also make sure that we are more effective against the different ones that were kind of standing out and be a little bit, sometimes too hard to kill. And some pretty positive changes here as well, so let's take a look. So Illuminates first. So with the Flesh Mob, targeting the faces will deal extra damage to its main health, effectively creating more weak spots. And so, friends, that is something that was always intended by the devs, so I'm glad it's actually happening now. Then the main health has decreased from 6,000 to 5,000, making them a little less tanky. And then most health zones are slightly more durable. Slightly less vulnerability to fire to balance, the overall health decrease. As for the elevated Overseers, main health has decreased from 600 to 450. Head health has increased from 150 to 200. Head zone armor has decreased, though, from 3 to 2. Torso health has decreased from 600 to 450. Arm health has decreased from 300 to 250, and slight increase on how easy it is to set them on fire. And then on for the Leviathan, now there's been some fun changes on this. They are now equipped with beam-based weaponry. Yep, cue the image. It's been a lot of fun to see this on the battlefield so far. But yeah, Leviathans will also not show up on missions that are outside of cities, so you don't have to complain about not having any cover to fight Leviathans now, so that's pretty positive. On to Terminids, and yes, elephant in the room, the Rupture Strain is returning. But, friends, the things have been optimized, so the strain overall it has updated textures, so better readability. The Rupture Warrior has had its movement speed when underground decreased, needs to surface more often when moving around underground, and then also its burrow attack is slightly slower and leaves more space for it to be dodged. Smaller damage boxes when attacking from below, and then front legs have decreased from 3 to 2 in terms of armor, and then will prefer to emerge before attacking turrets instead of destroying them from underneath. That is huge. Absolutely love those changes there. The Rupture Spewer has retuned the timing of how fast it starts to act from when it's burrowed underground and unburrows itself. And then for the Bile Spewer variations, increase size of the mouth for the weak spots. For the Brood Commander, slightly harder to set them on fire, whatever. For the Warriors, slightly harder to also set them on fire, and then slight durable increase to its head and body. I don't agree with that. I think just make them easier to kill. For the Dragon Roach, though, some positive changes over here. And that is going to be the spawn rate has decreased. Yes, I know that it was very frustrating for some people on different difficulties, but 50% lower on difficulties 5 and 6, 40% lower on difficulties 7, 8, and 9, and 33% lower on difficulty 10. Then also, this is a big one, everyone. The destruction of the wings will result in an instant kill and termination of that dragon, so that's huge. Wings now will have their own health pool of 4,000, and then an increase to how much damage the wings will take from an explosion. So, guys, fear not the dragons anymore if you didn't have all of the right gear to fight them originally. They will be easier to take down. As for our Bile Spewers, they are slightly harder to set on fire. Again, I disagree with that type of change. Larger body parts are slightly more durable as well. And then Hive Lord. So overall, there's been some improved performance during the Hive Lord encounters, probably for the different way that it spawned out of the ground and the animations. I haven't yet to try this out in actuality, but interested to see what this looks like. And then some big changes for the automatons. So starting off with base alarming, it's going to work differently now. Automaton troopers and bases will require better visual confirmation on us before calling in reinforcements. No more auto-popping the very second we step foot into a base, so that's a big change. Devastators now are slightly harder to be put on fire, but large body parts are slightly more durable as well. Command bunker turrets removed ragdolling from its projectile explosions. Thank God. The amount of times that all of us are getting bounced around while trying to infiltrate because we're getting hit by these damn turrets has been very annoying, so I'm glad that's going away. Factory Strider, slightly less vulnerable to fire. Friends, no more 3-second pops with a flamethrower underneath its belly. So, not so positive of a change for our flame lovers out there. For the War Strider, though, it shoots 2 fewer grenades per salvo. That's a very big positive change because it already shoots like 5 billion at you. It will also shoot its grenades less often. No more spam. And we're going to be removing the ragdolling from its projectile explosions. So, you do stand a chance when you're fighting these guys from facing it directly head on. You don't have to be bounced from one side to the other side to the other side. And then it now has weak spots across that we can aim for the eyes, the vents, and the back, different areas. So that's wonderful. So friends, if you don't have like the Quasar or the Recoilless, you can still take this thing out. And then lastly, for our Scout Striders, their armored top shield is slightly more durable, making them a little bit more, I guess, resistant to us Helldivers. Okay, on to arguably probably the more important thing that was needed for this update, and that is going to be the fixes section, and there are a ton of fixes as well, so let's get into those. So this has been a legacy issue for the first one that they've addressed. So fix an issue where Helldivers were unable to call down stratagems in the objective area of Nuke the Nursery Cave mission. Then fix an issue with the B100 portable Hellbomb stratagem, sometimes falling on a cave roof in the Destroy the Sporelung mission. And then fix an issue with the drill objective stratagem, sometimes landing in an unintended place, such as on top of caves in Nuke Nursery Hive World missions. And then players can now stay aiming down sights when activating the Lift 860 hover pack. And on to the crash fixes. So fix a crash that was occurring when fighting the different Illuminates, because there's a ton of those. Fix a crash when hot joining and redying up before other hot joiners. Fix a crash occurring when a player would rejoin multiple times. Fix a crash where it was caused by Eagle 1. Fix a crash that was rare where Eagle 1 would never be removed from the game session and eventually cause crashes. That's, the perpetual hovering that it would used to do. Fixed rare crash bug that would happen when spawning groups of enemies at a time. I don't know if you know this one. Sometimes it would just jettison out all of its men onto the ground and they wouldn't spawn correctly, and that would desync us from the game. Fixed crashes affecting Helldivers trying to lean out from a vehicle. Fixed a crash that would happen when scrolling through the weapon customization menu. Thank God for that one. And then finally, fixed a crash that would happen during the game's shutdown period. So again, those are really nice fixes to overall crashes. I do know that there are a couple more out there that have not been addressed yet, so I'm sure that's going to be worked on. But those are some really positive changes so far. Okay, on to weapons fixes. So fix armor pen values for the different stats menu for the combat hatchet, the stun baton, and the stun lance, the saber, and the one true flag, and then also the pineapple grenade. The armor pen is now properly being displayed as medium instead of light. So improved initial bullet alignment as well for strafing and riding in vehicles. Move the first person camera further away from the missile silo to target designated scope. And then fix the weapon reload animations desyncing when wielding armor passes that give increased reload speed. As well as for the FAF 14 spear can now lock on to automaton AA turrets. That is huge. Fix projectiles hitting direct center of sights when extremely close to enemies. And then haptic feedback is now present throughout the firing of the Flam 40 flamethrower stratagems. So a bunch of really positive fixes overall for the weaponry. Now there's a ton of miscellaneous fixes, so let's cover those. Fix a bug where the Hive Lord body parts would not spawn properly. Fix an instance where the Helldiver couldn't rejoin their previous host if that host had left and joined a game in progress from the loadout. Fix the bug where the Lift 182 Warpack would sometimes get stuck suspended in air. Fix the Adreno Boost defib animation. Fix disconnection issues when joining solo player with 3 cross-platform players. Fix mesh clipping for the arms on some animations. Reduce the chance of the extraction shuttle clipping into terrain. Fix a flickering bug on the avatar when the Helldivers get affected by mud or snow. Fix a bug hole covered by main terrain in one of the CR10 mega nests. Rupture Warriors can no longer destroy deployable turrets underground. Fix an issue where the front door of the gator would become inaccessible. Fixed a rare issue where the player could be disconnected when they're part of a mixed platform, 3-person lobby that joins a solo player under poor network conditions. Fixed an issue with the Illuminate dropships not taking correct damage during the Repel Invasion Fleet mission. The currency symbol for the Saudi Rial is now displayed correctly if you're a Saudi player. The oil rig's reverse audio will no longer continuously play if the player attempts to reverse the oil extract. That's that beeping. Fix the Helldivers going through the floor in the tutorial mission when diving into the barbed wires. Fixed a rare soft lock in the tutorial. Helldiver is now killed when driving into drill holes during the nuke nursery missions. Fixed an issue where Helldivers could enter a vehicle even though the seat got claimed by someone else first. Fixed controller vibrations behaving incorrectly when connecting or disconnecting controllers on PC. Fixed miscellaneous threading issues in the audio system. Thank God for that, because audio desyncs are terrible. Fix minor texture clipping issues on the floor between helipad launchers on the ship. And then fix an issue with the voice chat would sometimes change volume unexpectedly, particularly when entering caves. Again, thank you so much for that. And to help with the overall performance of the game, aside from crashes and fixes, there's also been a ton of optimizations, so let's cover those as well. So they've optimized status effects, optimized physics by enabling powered ragdolls when needed, optimized physics body handling for damage calculations, optimize automaton units and NPC eyes by changing them from particle effects to shaders, optimize AI behaviors by analyzing and stripping out redundant codes. That's huge, actually. I don't know if you realize how big that is. reduce stuttering during drop-in sequence for missions on Hive worlds, improve the audio I/O performance, snow distribution and overall look has been reworked, improve performance by tweaking LOD settings for characters, optimize asset distribution for several planet types, optimize scattered different assets such as grass on various planet types, optimize asset distribution in hive worlds and terminated caves, optimize asset setup and geometry for assets used within hive worlds and terminated caves, optimize status effect physics and particle systems while maintaining visual feedback and fidelity, optimize various automaton explosion VFX, optimize acid rain effects during acid storms, optimize dragon roach fire attack VFX, made various optimizations to fire system including particle and light optimization, and then finally improved performance by optimizing the rendering of several shaders. So friends, I don't know if you also thought of this too, but this is helping with, kind of the dedupes that are on PC to help with the issue between the mechanical drive and the SSD not being able to, properly get what they needed to be well optimized. And very excited for that. That should help PC performance immensely. So overall, everyone, do you think that Arrowhead has gone far enough to really, bring back the positive energy to the game that is so needed in here? Or do you think that there needs to be a lot more done? Personally, my take on it is that this is a good step in the right direction, good several steps in the right direction, but they really need to keep with their promise of being more transparent with the communication, not just being like, hey, we understand what you're saying, and then dead silence and then an info drop. That makes us, kind of spiral as players. We want to have more communication with our devs and get on a better understanding of what's going on behind the scenes. So, Arrowhead, if you're listening, please take that note with a kind message for myself. But overall, friends, thank you so much for tuning in. As always, really appreciate you listening in, especially since this is a long video. Be sure to like, hit that bell, subscribe, all the good stuff. Give the hype points because it helps us out over here. And we will see you on the battlefield, Helldivers. Take care.